Why was Finn the most ruthless character on the entire show?
I'll slay anything that's evil. That's my deal.
Our boy frequently tried to kill anyone and everyone who he viewed as evil, including a depressed old woman.
I told you she was evil!
Marceline during her very first episode all the way back at the beginning of the series.
Can't take her home twice! Yes, I can! Yeah, it's vampire fighting time!
And even Hanson Abadier after learning just how much he meant to Marceline.
Is this kid your evil servant?
I'm not evil, Marceline's dad. I'm super good.
Super good.
I mean, while Hanson Abadier was actually really evil, the method and timing used when Finn chose to take him down just felt so excessively brutal.
I'll see you in the Nightosphere, you sick freak.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Adventure Time was no stranger to diving headfirst into some of the most deep and philosophical topics that has ever been touched on in a cartoon aimed at kids.
Please, share our food. You need nourishment.
From tackling the surreal emotions that comes with living an unfulfilled life and then abruptly passing away,
What did the Oracle say, Father? Have we come to the right spot finally?
to whatever the Hall of Egress was trying to teach us. It was a really engaging episode. Finn, after getting trapped inside of a wacky supernatural dungeon, learns that the only way that he'd be able to search for an escape route would be by ironically closing his eyes. But every time that he opened his eyes to get a glimpse of his surroundings, he'd get instantly transported right back to the center of the dungeon.
I'm just hoping maybe if I sleep it off, maybe I'll be better in the morning.
Despite all of the show's fascinating takes, when it came to morality and defining the value of a life, Adventure Time often chose to take the easy way out by pretending that this concept didn't exist. But to be fair, the series definitely wasn't alone on this decision. For all intensive purposes, Finn and Jake were both the sheriffs of Ooo. Sure, the banana guards and other beings that could have fit into the role of law enforcement already exist in this universe, but whenever there was a crisis in Ooo or a real dispute that required any effort to actually be settled, Princess Bubblegum definitely wasn't calling banana guard number 27 over Finn Mertens and his best friend.
He asked me not to tell you, but I cannot break my oath to serve you, my lady. 100%.
They're gonna make him do this till he's 90.
Interestingly enough, Princess Bubblegum seemingly chose to entrust none other than Finn and Jake with the responsibility of being the sole judge, jury, and executioners of the land of Ooo, which meant that they alone were in charge of deciding which antagonists needed to be locked up, which deserved to be let go, and most importantly, which were too far gone and needed to be put down permanently.
Should we let him take his heart back?
You what?
Now, the land of Ooo being set in a post-apocalyptic version of our world of course implied that morality in itself needed to be bent to a certain degree. In order for its many citizens to have been able to survive for as long as they did, dragons needed to be slain, man-eating worms needed to be sliced, skeletons needed to be tricked into doing the splits, and so on.
God damn, girl.
Can I get a show of hands of how many of us forgot that Finn was fully prepared to kill his own father by tearing one of his arms off after the heated family reunion at the Citadel? Some fans argue that Finn wasn't really serious about taking Martin's arm during the ordeal. But if that was the case, then why in the world was this the moment where we got to see Finn tap into his cosmic side for presumably the first time? I'm not going to say that it's impossible that Finn wasn't serious about taking out his own father, but when you combine this idea with everything else that is already done, then it starts to become a lot more believable.
If you want the heroes and Kyridian, then slay this unaligned ant.
Never.
Martin seemingly became irredeemable or evil in Finn's eyes the moment that he chose to escape the Citadel without properly reconnecting with his son first. Which makes sense. At the end of the day, Finn was left to fend for himself in one of the most dangerous environments on the planet when he was just a baby.
Dude, let's kill the horse.
What?
Putting Finn's childhood trauma aside for a second, Jake's morality was even more messed up than his brother's, which is confusing to say the least. Mainly when you consider the fact that Jake had a much more peaceful childhood than Finn, relatively speaking of course. While Finn rationalizes in his mind that only people and entities who are evil deserve to be put down, Jake usually chooses to take the path of least resistance whenever it's available. It didn't matter if the brothers were facing off against problematic candy citizens, mutants, wild animals, or malfunctioning sentient robots. Jake was intriguingly always the one to suggest some kind of permanent or destructive solution that would have solved all of their problems as quickly as possible.
No, man, we're not killing the horse.
Okay, we won't kill the horse.
To be fair, Finn's hero code, while basic, did remain incredibly consistent for the duration of the series. That is, until he was forced to take Fern's life in the heat of battle. Someone who he believed didn't deserve to face the ultimate punishment, because despite the fact that he had clearly lost his way, for better or worse, Fern was still one of Finn's closest friends.
Today doesn't have to have this kind of finality.
Fern's death changed everything, at least when it came to finally shaking up Finn's moral compass. For the first time ever, we saw Finn genuinely struggling to decide which threats were absolutely necessary to put down and which should have been given a second chance at life. Season 10 of Adventure Time was special for many reasons, but one of my favorite aspects of this era was the fact that we got to experience a very different Finn Mertens.
I used to be all about violence. Now it's like, I'm different.
You're a beautiful flower and I love to watch you grow.
This was a version of a character who began to question himself and his previously unwavering belief that everyone who was evil deserved to be hunted down and exterminated. While it definitely would have been nice if we had some of these major character developments sprinkled in gradually over time instead of all of it being contained within the final 2 seasons, I'm grateful that Adventure Time eventually came around to expressing its philosophical views on morality at all, if I'm being honest.
I feel like I put a lot of work into this meat reality. I'd like to see it through.
Priceless. There are some things money can't buy.
One of the most jarring moments in Amphibia and the Owl House will both feature during their big final battles, and I'm shocked that I was seemingly in the minority of people who were bothered by this. For those of you who haven't seen either of these fairly new shows, The Owl House follows the journey of Luz Noseda, a 14-year-old girl who gets isekai'd into another dimension filled with manipulative creeps and overpowered entities called the Boiling Isles. Over the course of the series, we see Luz grow as a person alongside a couple of troublesome residents who she'd soon befriend, date, and even consider to be part of her family. Emperor Belos was introduced as being the main antagonist of the series. He was once a human just like our girl Luz, but he became a disfigured beast after arriving in the Boiling Isles, and Luz mercilessly kills him. If you've already seen The Owl House, then I know that you already understand why Emperor Belos had to be stopped. He was a heartless monster and undoubtedly deserved everything that happened to him. Here's the problem though, just because Emperor Belos deserved to be punished for his crimes doesn't mean that it made sense canonically for Luz to have been the one to dish it out. Belos was, after all, the very first life that Luz took on the show, and prior to this moment, none of us could have predicted that Luz was comfortable with going as far as she did. We didn't even get that much after the battle to at least be able to piece together how Luz might have felt about its costly conclusion. Luz, being the one who snuffed Belos out without warning, doesn't make The Owl House a bad show by any means, but it does make the show feel a lot less mature and layered. Then there's Anne Boonchoi, a 13-year-old girl who also gets isekai'd into another dimension, but instead of being alone like Luz, Anne's 2 best friends were sucked into the mysterious world of Amphibia alongside her. Also, Anne tries to straight up murder King Andreas, the main antagonist of her series, and probably would have if the poor bastard didn't choose to surrender mid-fight. Same goes for Sasha during their second duel. The show's fanbase noticed immediately that Anne was definitely aiming for her childhood friend's vitals, which again came out of nowhere. Not Anne being mad at Sasha, that was explained. I'm talking about the part where she became comfortable with taking lives. I'm fully aware that these inconsistencies and questionable moral decisions aren't a major problem in the grand scheme of things, but to say that they don't matter in the slightest would only serve to diminish the effort put in by the shows that did make sure to let us know how the characters felt about taking lives. Firelord Ozai was arguably way more ruthless than Emperor Belos and King Andreas combined, but the writers of Avatar: The Last Airbender made it their mission to teach us that there can be other effective ways of dealing with our enemies instead of just resorting to the easiest solution.